Dragon SpaceX, com check.
SpaceX Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
All right, so that was the voice.
We have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
That was the voice of Commander Jasmine Mugbelly.
Automated chute deployment.
Great to hear her voice on the other side of the comms blackout. And a great view here, that thermal cam showing us live reentry of the Crew 7 team on board Dragon Endurance.
And the Corps also did let Jasmine Mugbelly and the Crew 7 crew know that they expect a nominal or normal drogue chute deploy, expecting us to maybe begin to get some views of that here in about a minute and a half or 2 minutes from now. And then following that will be the main chutes that deploy. Continuing to get some really incredible views of Crew 7.
Dragon SpaceX GPS has converged. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
All right, good news there. That's an indicator that we can expect the drogue parachutes to release about the 350 mile per hour speed, or about 18,000 feet above the ocean. As I mentioned, the streak becomes dimmer just prior to the chute deployment. This view here is coming to us from our recovery vessel, Megan, which is the large vessel that will make its way out to the capsule and ultimately pick it up out of the ocean and place it in the nest on board. Now we should see the drogues pop out here.
Brace for drogue window.
The thermal cam will provide us a much better view of the parachute deployment.
So we are standing by for those drogues to deploy. We should see that begin to happen here any second from now.
Tracking to about 15 seconds until drogue deploy. Once again, Dragon is reading its altitude as well as barometric pressure to determine when the appropriate, and there we can see the drogues deploying now, the appropriate time to deploy those drogue parachutes.
And so these drogue parachutes do help to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle ahead of the mains being deployed a short time after.
Expecting mains at about 30.
Descent rate nominal.
All right, that's great news there, indicating that the rate of deceleration with the drogue chutes is as expected. The main parachutes will deploy next. That will occur around the 6,500 foot mark above the ocean surface. And at that point in time, the capsule will be traveling around 120 miles per hour, and we can see those main parachutes deploying now. Those drogue parachutes will land in the ocean, and hopefully we will be able to recover them, but they kind of sink quickly sometimes, so the recovery teams will go out and try to recover those drogue parachutes for reuse on future cargo missions. We can see here.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
Great news there, indicating that the deceleration rate of the...
Copy 1,000.
So at this point in time, Jasmine is now transitioning into calling out Dragon's altitude. Beautiful thermal view there of the capsule and 4 healthy mains. It's hard to tell in this view because, again, it is thermal, but the parachutes are orange and white. If you've seen a daytime launch, you'll know what they look like, and we should be able to see, hopefully...
800 meters.
Dragon is now 800 meters
Copy 800.
above the ocean. Now, once Dragon splashes down, the capsule will automatically cut the ties to the parachutes. This helps in the case where it might be windy. It isn't today. Wind speeds are pretty low at the moment.
600 meters.
But if it were a little windy, it would help to ensure that
Copy 6.
that Dragon doesn't get destabilized by having the main parachutes. And we will also recover those main parachutes from as they float in the ocean as well.
And standing by for that splashdown, now about a minute away from that or less.
400 meters.
400 meters is what Jasmine just called out. So the next call out we'll hear is for 200 meters, and then of course splashdown. So continuing to get great views of 4 healthy mains as well as the Crew Dragon with 4 astronauts on board.
Bracing at 200.
And the crew is bracing for splashdown. We do hear that the fast
SpaceX
boats,
copies 200 and braced.
the fast boats are en route. Standing by for splashdown.
What a beautiful sight. As you can see on your screen, we have
Dragon, splashdown.
SpaceX copies. See the same.
visual and audio confirmation for splashdown of Dragon Endurance. It has now returned home, and NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli, along with ESA astronaut Andy Mogensen, JAXA astronaut Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov are back on Earth after an approximately 18-and-a-half-hour return journey from space. The SpaceX recovery ship and team has been waiting for Dragon splashdown, and they are now making their way to that splashdown site.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see Crew 7 back on Earth after 199 days in space. They splashed down at 5:47 a.m. Eastern Time, and the teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away in preparation for splashdown. So,
Dragon SpaceX, on behalf of all of SpaceX, welcome home. We're with you in 4.800.
SpaceX is in Stardust. Thanks for the ride up, and more importantly, a safe ride down. And thank you to NASA to be back on planet Earth.
and we did hear some words from NASA astronaut Jasmine
SpaceX
Mogbelli.
copies, mains cut.
We didn't quite catch them all, but of course the sentiment was her thanks for the folks that have helped supported their mission and ensured that they got back home safely on Earth. You can see that the sea is really quite smooth. It doesn't look like it's too choppy at all. And we also did hear the confirmation that the drogue parachutes were successfully cut as expected. That is something that happens in the recovery process here.
What we're looking at right now is a thermal image, and once we are able, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Once the recovery vessel is closer,
I think it's stable 1.
Copy, stable 1.
That was just Jasmine reporting on Dragon's position for splashdown. This orientation is known as Stable 1, as we've seen in all of our Dragon splashdowns. But once Megan gets closer, recovery vessel Megan gets closer to the capsule, we'll be able to have not thermal, but just regular views, because those vessels that are on its way, the fast boats, as well as Megan, have lights and bright lights at that. And so we'll be able to see better views of Dragon once the recovery vessel gets a little bit closer. But that takes several minutes to complete, as the capsule, as the recovery team has been waiting 3 nautical miles away from the splashdown site. So it'll take a few minutes for Megan to chug along over to recover the Crew 7 team.
And we did see a lot of social media hits of folks in the Midwest as they watched Crew 7 re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. But we actually have someone on the phone who had a bird's eye view on the recovery vessel Megan. We have NASA's Rebecca Turkington, a NASA Public Affairs Officer at the Johnson Space Center, who was on the boat during the re-entry and splashdown. So again, she had a great firsthand view of the crew returning and splashing down. So Rebecca, how can you hear us?
Dragon SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in 1 minute.
That's great to hear, Rebecca, and we are hearing some communications to the crew.
Expect recovery personnel in 1 minute.
That we do expect the recovery personnel to begin to approach.
Permission to come on board via the display camera view only.
So while we work through that...
Hey, Sandra, how do you hear me?
And Dragon wanted you to come on board
Sandra,
with all cameras if you'd like.
And Rebecca, we're going to come back to you in just a minute as we work through these dynamic operations for recovery. Stand by and we'll be back with you in just a minute. And so we did hear those communications to Crew 7, letting them know that the recovery teams would begin to approach here momentarily. So we might be able to get some views on our screens as we see those fast boats begin to approach the Dragon capsule.
Exactly. So there's a couple of fast boats that are dedicated to retrieving the parachutes out of the water, as well as a fast boat that will be dedicated to approaching the capsule and basically using personal protective equipment for the folks that are on the boat, because at this point in time, Dragon has just come back from space. It's possible that there are some residual hypergolic fumes around the Draco thrusters and around the nose cone. So the team is actually going to approach with a hypergol sniffer.
SpaceX, just for awareness, we are on board with the display camera at this time.
Okay, copy, on board with display camera.
And that was just SpaceX Core letting the Crew 7 team know that there it is, that view is online once again. This allows us to see over their shoulders and once again see what they're looking at on their screens. At this point in time, it should be pretty stagnant in terms of none of the Draco thrusters are going to be firing anymore. They're already back in the water, so there's no trajectory to look at. And there we can see on the right-hand side of your screen one of those fast boats approaching the Dragon Endurance capsule. And as I was saying, there could be residual hypergolic fumes or left over around the Draco thrusters or around the nose cone. So that team is actually approaching with PPE or personal protective equipment such as respirators and masks to approach closely Dragon Endurance, but they will actually use a hypergol sniffer to detect whether or not there are any of those fumes lingering. This takes a couple minutes to complete, and once they basically check and get green light in terms of no residuals, no fumes lingering, they will give the green light for